Welcome back, everybody, to another year of the Transformation Leaders podcast. I'm Sean Ennis. I'm joined, as always, with my estimable colleague, David Soden, as we look forward to 2026. The future is now, David. We'll talk a little bit about where we think the puck is going, as Wayne Gretzky once said. And let's just dive right in to talk about the things that people are interested in hearing about what's going to happen next year. So let's start with the first thing is I think, and what I've heard in the news is that our American wonderkin, Elon Musk and Tesla have ordered 3 million parts for 3 million robots to be made in 2026 with deliveries at the end of the year, which is all oriented towards taking manufacturing and applying large language model AI, just like we did with the multi-agent last year, and combine those two together to do manufacturing at scale in a composable way. All of a sudden, manufacturing in America will be composable as software. Super interesting concept. What do you think, David?
Well, I think that this is going to be probably the year of the robot if this comes to fruition. As all things, they sound great until sales happens. And if sales light or falls flat, then you'll know exactly what's going on. But there is the natural evolution. If we just summarize in 2024, again, we're talking about generative AI. 2025 was agentic AI. And now if we apply all of this into robotics, which is where it naturally needs to go, I think we're going to see two segments of this. I think Elon Musk's Optimus Prime, or whatever he was calling that black robot that was there handing out drinks and stuff. It's like anything. I would say if you've ever used Microsoft technologies in the first iteration of whatever they release, it's okay. Maybe lackluster. Not sure that these robots are going to go off without a hitch. But the good news is the hardware, generally speaking, is fairly good. A lot of it is going to be controlled by software. So if sales are weak or strong, I think the good news for Musk is all those parts I don't think are going to go in vain. A lot of the improvements are going to happen in software as long as the mechanics have the dexterity needed to do the job. Whether it's the robot for cooking or cracking eggs or, all of these videos that you watch about robots doing things around the house. I know personally in our household, my wife would love to have a robot like this to do certain things. And I think both my wife and myself to do and knock out our honey-do list by having a robot there. The only thing I think my wife and I are both equally uneasy about is we might have to power it down and put it out there next to the lawnmower in the shed. Maybe not too trusting about leaving it on in the middle of the night as we sleep, just because not so much that the robot's going to do something bad, but somebody can hack that robot. And it's new, right? It's newer technology, and there's going to be risks come along for the ride for that. So these are things that, whether or not they talk about it, these are the honest internal thoughts that I'm thinking about and have concerns. So I'm both excited and a little nervous at the same time. Outside of that, I think the workplace, we're going to see this unfold and evolve where we have automation, robots, and agentic going on strong this year. I think we're going to see our digital colleagues come online more and more with more and more capabilities. So this is interesting and threatening both at the same time. So I think there's opportunity and trepidation at the same time. So with good reason. You share much the same or different opinion one way or the other, or kind of where are you landing on any of this?
Well, from what I've heard is, at least initially, these robots will be offered as a service, meaning you can't buy them, you have to pay for them. So supremely interesting from that regard. I can tell you I will not be getting one unless it has an air gap off switch. Sorry, I don't know if you are all like this, but I don't know if you can see that. It's a little thing that you could put to cover your
camera
video, right? So this is when webcams first came out, right? People started putting pieces of tape over it. And I used this story, and a lot of you may have been old enough to remember when webcams started being a thing, and then people started hacking them and taking pictures of whatever it could see whenever it could. Then they started putting these very simple on and off air-gapped non-technology solutions because people did not feel comfortable. It's the same thing. I remember a famous line in The Sopranos saying, "Go turn off your browsers if we're going to talk. I don't trust cookies." I don't know if you remember that. But this is something that everybody always is threatened by. Like, this is going to be a massive change to our culture and what it does.
Yep. Yeah.
I remember every year they say this is the year of the Linux desktop. You remember that? Right? Last year, they said AI agentics was going to change how everybody works and plays. There is a latency. And as much as I believe that right now is the best time to build, building is not as easy. Building is much easier than implementing. Because a solution is people, process, and technology. Technology being the least valuable, easiest thing to achieve.
Yep.
People have to do this. And if you're like, "Sean, what about AI? You don't need people." You always need people. Okay, if you throw robots at your manufacturing process and you lay off all the people who are building these things, who are going to buy them? You still need humans to buy things, right? And if you will have no need to build things if nobody is willing to buy them because they can't afford them because nobody's building these things. So, Rome wasn't built in a day, and that is a positive and a negative thing, right? Because we're all going to have to get there together. And yes, robots may be doing the heavy lifting. A good friend of mine, he has a father who was a mechanic who worked on big trucks. He has knees problems, he has hips problems, he has arms problems, because that is heavy duty work, man. That is real manly stuff. I mean, I have very soft fingertips because of the typing that I do. This gentleman, he dealt with some pretty heavy duty things, and it impacted his body after 40 years of doing that work. Now, in the future, robots are going to be doing that heavy lifting. OSHA is going to say humans can't do that, but a robot can tell them what to do and make sure they do it right. So that is what I believe the future of robotics and blue-collar workers are going to be, is that picking up heavy things, doing dangerous things, things that impact your body, robots will be doing. Deciding what can be do, what should be done, how it should be done, and when it should be done is going to be the blue-collar job of the future.
Yep. No, this is true. Very, very true. I think, too, a message for all leadership. If you're watching this show, you're listening, the best advice I can give you among any technological advice is you need to be cognizant of the industry in which you're in. So whatever you do to deploy, if you want to or need to eliminate or reduce your staff, replace them with whether it's automation robots or physical type of robots to do manual labor. You have to understand the impact of what this means 2 years, 3 years, even 4 years down the road. So, for example, we're seeing this now unfold In 2026, the impacts are going to become more apparent. It started in 2025, and that entire industries are going to start to become decimated because there are less and less people going into college for these types of roles or jobs because they don't feel like if they put the money in, the invest in, that they're going to have an opportunity to come out, because now internships, people coming fresh out of college, they're no longer getting the job opportunities that they used to. And if this trend continues, you're going to see everything that was built into the educational pipeline drop off a cliff. And then all of a sudden you're going to realize, hey, I need to go back to partial humans. And then you're going to go scrambling to look for those people. They are not going to exist because collectively you and everybody else in the industry went too quick, too fast, and sent the wrong signal, the wrong message. So it is about the long game on when it comes to AI and agentics. You need to think in long-term ways. Do not reduce by half or more these large numbers. You need to have every year, every quarter, every whatever. And I would go suggested, do your numbers quarterly and do them incrementally tiny, because you may need to pull back. You may need to go all in, find other ways of reducing costs. But just be very, very careful about what you do to the human workforce that you're employing, because you go too quick, too fast. I'm telling you, it's going to bite us all in the, very quickly.
Yeah. I mean, again, the media out there is very clear, and industry is telling this story that we need fewer employees, we need fewer humans, when in fact, that doesn't work. It is the symbiosis, right? AI only works under instruction. And it is a force multiplier, I agree. But I don't think that it is going to be able to provide you the assurance you need to do business. Again, David, we're in business together. We shake hands and say, this is the way it's going to be, right? You take your employees and say, this is what it's going to be. I take my employees, say, this is what it's going to be. And their job is to execute it on. Now, if we hand that over to AI and AI messes it all up, right? There's a different level of competence. You and me know that, hey, sometimes employees are going to make mistakes. We'll make it right. When it comes to AI and we do AI wrong, and then it incrementally and scales to an infinite level a bad decision, it could cause enormous pain. So I think, and maybe I'm in minority, but I believe businesses are going to wise up and know that it is about the relationship between the brand and the consumer. And that relationship needs to be maintained with a human on the wheel. I'm not saying that the human is going to be the one carrying the packages or documenting, the data or pushing the ones and zeros, but a human is going to need to be a supervisor. And that is whether it is white collar or blue collar. I think a lot of the reaction people are having in 2025 with the layoffs they did were just couched under, hey, we need to reduce the size of our organization for a different reason. And I'm going to just say AI is the reason why I'm doing it. And I think that is going to continue. I think it is a very easy scapegoat to blame tech for reduction of force decisions now and into the future. But I think they're putting the blame on the wrong thing, because from the companies that I've talked to, very few are entrusting their customers' success solely to artificial intelligence.
Yeah, and just to add the final topic or point on this, late last year, beginning of fourth quarter, I wrote this article. I posted it on my personal website. I'll share the link here below now. If you guys read this, this is talking about Amazon. It's talking about Microsoft. It's talking about Facebook. These are companies that are really big on staff reduction in order to reduce costs. However, when you get into the deeper research of this, and I've seen a couple other articles since I've written this one, talking about the very same thing, which was actually pretty good to see because it was justifying the fact and the data that I found. There's this facade that people are being laid off because of AI, and that's the rule that they're using. But in reality, all they're doing is they're shuffling the workforce for cheaper labor, and unfortunately, that cheaper labor is coming from offshore, nearshore, or somewhere other than where it needs to be. And the crux of the issue is that during COVID, they overhired. And they needed a news cycle release to get out of from what they are to get a soft landing on it. So they blamed it on AI, which is good and bad. But from a insult to injury, I guess, standpoint, it's bad because it sends the wrong message to the industry. The wrong signals are getting sent out. Everybody thinks that AI is going, above and beyond awesome and wonderful, and they're freaking out. But the reality is these numbers are skewed because if you look at the H-1B visas applications and the things, there's a correlation, almost a direct mapping. So if I laid off 10,000 U.S. workers all of a sudden and said, oh, well, we've replaced them with AI. And now we look at the H-1B visas for, I'm going to make countries up, the Philippines and or Africa and or I don't know, somewhere in the EU, maybe Ukraine or something. I don't know. But the point is, it's cheaper labor than what you would get here. And as a result of that, you are trading 10,000 humans for 10,000 humans, not 10,000 humans for AI. And so that's very misleading. And so that gets a little bit scary. There's also, I can't remember, I listed it off into the article, but there was a very popular company that basically said that they had all this wonderful AI technology, and it was a call center in India that was automating and doing all of this by humans. It was not AI at all. And so a lot of people invested in this company and they wound up coming out short. So anyway, the takeaway or the long short on this is just be very careful about the decisions that you make with regards to replacing any humans with technology, and a small modicum of discernment is needed to make sure that you're doing this in incremental, small bite size, as to not have everybody else in the industry drive away the humans out of the workforce because there's just no opportunity for them anymore. Okay. Moving on to the next item on the list here. We're talking about composable infrastructure and dominance.
Yep.
Sean, can you give us a few examples of what is companies?
This is the massive SaaS software industry, the software legacy vendors. Now that software is like tissue paper, and you could go through and completely create a new application in minutes. Last year, we did a multi-agent example where now you can create applications, detailed, mission-critical applications in minutes, tested and delivered to a pipeline and rolled out in days. This is going to add a whole new layer to the world that we live in. Specifically, David, yours and mine, that platforms which had a tremendous amount of stickiness to it. Now, if your vendor disappoints you enough, you can move your whole organization. Now, I know, for example, back in the day, I was working with a telecom group, and that telecom group had decided no more Oracle. Done. We're done. They went through and spent 10 times as much as they were going to pay Oracle's ransom for maintenance to move every single one of their enterprises off Oracle. And they did it. That CEO was then replaced. And last thing I have heard is Oracle is right back in there. So, there is pain in making these changes in this infrastructure changes in your environment. What AI is doing is eliminating pain. It's eliminating tech debt decision making, where people are like, hey, I don't like this vendor. I don't like their maintenance structure keeps going up. And there are absolutely vital or viable candidates to replace them, but the migration path is just too painful. Well, what AI is doing is saying that your infrastructure is completely composable, that you can generate on demand new experiences, new applications, new platforms, migrate between them on a whim. So if the value is going to remain the same and the cost is going to be significantly different, this means that there are several people or organizations who are going to be very interested in making massive changes. The Microsofts, the Salesforce, the ServiceNows. These are the SaaS platforms that have built NASDAQ over the last 10, 20 years. And now their moat, because of AI, is eroding rapidly. So, a lot of people are very interested in 2026 into what this does. And again, with the previous two that we talked about, David, it is like, I feel like we're talking scary, right? There's change is always good and bad, right?
It's the uncertainty principle that's going to get you.
It is good and bad. It gives you options, which is good. The problem is it could divert your focus, which is bad, right? So I had this conversation all the time. What's more important, saving money or making money? Oh. And from client to client, they have different orders of magnitude of answers of those. Some are like, hey, our industry is in a decline, so we need to save money. There are some that are in ascension, and we need to do it. But for the most people, there's some freedom for digital transformation leaders to decide what bets they're going to make in the new year.
I'm going to make a prediction. I don't know how true this is going to be, but my gut is telling me that the oracles of the world, in your story and your use case, watch and see that if APIs that were historically created to encourage integration are now treated as an option and something to capitalize on for the purposes of gaining access by extension, because AI is going to make integrations, upgrades, migrations with such ease that it is going to become an opportunity for these 800-pound gorillas to slow down or wall off. So let's just say your license cost per user is $500 per.
Mm-hmm.
It'll still be $500 per, but if you want API access, it's going to cost you an additional $500 or $1,500, whatever they can to discourage access. They have the API, but if you want to gain access to it, because AI is going to sidecar a feature and leapfrog their technology, or they're going to do whatever, I bet that they either restrict it or charge exorbitant amounts of money in order to control that asset or control that growth. Now, that's only going to buy them a couple of days, weeks, months, or years, but watch that something like this doesn't start to take place. I think it would be a very bad idea. I think, if anything, they should open it up and create MCP servers around it. But I think you're going to see both of these happening, where different strategies for different companies, and only time's going to be able to tell. But as you know, as we're talking about all of this, I think it's probably smart. Let's just say nothing changes. If you're a company and you have something like Oracle or Salesforce, these 800-pound gorilla systems, and you're waiting for a feature, you know they're not going to come out with it anytime soon. You can put a feature request in, but unless you are their number 2 or their top 50 customers or even 100, you're probably not going to see a lot of traction happening on that anytime soon. However, rather than rip out the gorilla and replace it, as per Sean's story, you can create these ancillary apps that enhance the technology, get you what you're looking for. And with AI and API access, or even MCP access, these challenges become a thing of the past. So I think the architecture of all of this is just going to radically change. And I think, you know, there's opportunities for these vendors to see, hey, who's doing what? And maybe start to pay them. Hey, listen, let me borrow your code. Let's integrate this into our platforms. May not be per se exactly as whatever vibe coder or whatever customer wrote or whatever they've done. But I think there's opportunities for all kinds of really interesting, good things. It's always, you know, the glass is half full or half empty. And companies just need to get behind it and just say, hey, listen, let's get on this bandwagon. Let's ride this wave. Let's see what we can do creative. We just need to figure out how are we going to handle this at scale and at volume. And if you can get that part figured out, oh man, what an interesting future this is going to be.
Yeah. And again, so the next one that I wanted to bring to your attention is what I'm calling the personalization operating system. So we now exist in a world where every time you make a call, every time you go to a website, every time you start a chat, every time you send an email or get a phone call, you can have a completely tailored experience, because the cost of vibe programming, the cost of AI omnichannel has dropped so much so, and that the latency has dropped so much so that we can provide you a on-demand interface customized to you. And the future 2026 may be where the true form of hyper-personalization get to a point where everybody has their own experience operating system, that when you call in, they know who you are, what you like. You know, you prefer a Southern accent versus a Pacific Northwest, right? So you and your proclivities, just like light and dark mode. Remember light and dark mode, right? The canary in the coal mine of personalization is light and dark mode. Imagine taking that to the next level, where when you go in to your favorite restaurant, they know exactly what you prefer to order. They know that you like Coke and not Pepsi, right? This is the world that we're living, and this idea of a personalized operating system is something I believe that's going to be very big in 2026.
I think retail marketers would be well advised to seek your consultative services on that, sir.
I think that this is a huge impact to what omnichannel is going to be now into the future, is these much more personalized interfaces, so that you feel at home abroad. Remember all those wonderful commercials that we grew up on about how brands care? Well, I think now the technology is caught up where brands can scale their customer service in a much more customer-facing, customer fixated manner.
Yeah, no, you're completely right. And this is one of the things companies have struggled with for years. And I think you're going to find, these data brokers that people are using right now to assimilate this information. I think there's going to be a lot more regulations and rules. While we talked about previously in our wrap up of 2025 about regulatory compliance, you're probably going to start to see a lot more regulation come down in those areas. Maybe not so much on AI per se, but in, personal protection, personal information, opting out, just because of, there's two sides to this equation. While it's a convenience, what cost does it come with at reality? So I would expect to see a lot of regulatory change and compliance stuff around all of this stuff, which as things get easier, things equally get harder.
Yeah. So that is a great point, because what happens when that happens, David? When the sovereignty AI mandates are starting to collide. AI is now global. What happens when your experiences cross borders? What happens when you start seeing that, let's just say, facts in one area of the world differ from facts in other sides of the world, and that AI somehow is caught in the middle? The policies of it may be truthful, but it is not politically convenient. So therefore, this is the world that we live in.
Well, you just
a compromise will have to be made.
You talked about this last podcast about the AI regulations of the EU being stringent and the US relaxing. I mean, this is a perfect prime example. And this is how it happens, where somebody opens up the floodgates and the other one closes it completely down to a drip.
I believe that in 2026, we're going to have much more international collaboration and cooperation when it comes to this. We're going to have a UN level discussion about how sovereignty in the world of AI is going to be how it's going to work. Because right now, it doesn't. And it is impeding the ability of global, national, and regional players to move in their spaces and out of their spaces because of these limits. And I can tell you the world does not want that to continue. It's just going to be a drag. It's going to be splintering. And as we all know, the world loves consolidation. So I believe that's my prediction for 2026. There will be a UN level discussion and agreement around the use and the compliance of AI. And there will be a lot of exceptions for different countries in that. But there will be a level of collaboration and a standard where, if, like GPDR as an example, how we can all exist on a single plane.
Yeah, and unfortunately and sadly, there's polarity in everything. We see it now. I've never seen such, and while there's polarity, it's equalized polarity. There's not a whole lot. Even if you look at the political system and the political divide in the US, there's not a great degree of margin. I mean, I've seen it in the last 10 years fluctuate between 46 to 54% within that range, going back and forth, or 45 this is the widest I've seen it, 45, 65 or whatever. But the point is, the divide is equal and great. And while you have the yin, you've got the yang, and you've got things being, trying to be governed and things trying to be moved up. So, one person's pain is another person's, glory. And while somebody's making money, somebody's getting the short end of the stick too, as well. I think you'll see a lot of agreement or unilateral, well, no, not unilateral, but agreement around probably personalized data protections. I think you will see less and less. I think we're going to see relaxing of this sovereignty of nations. These borders, unfortunately, everywhere. I know this encroaches on politics too. I don't want to get too much into any of that, but we're seeing an erosion of that. And so I think as it comes to AI, as that relaxes or that erosion happens, I think this might exasperate it, or it could strengthen it. It could be the catalyst to strengthen it again. So I don't really know. I just know that there's a lot of polarity around it, and it doesn't matter which side of the camp that you're on. Either way, it's just going to intensify. I'll say and leave it there. It's whatever this is and however this turns out, I think it's definitely going to be exasperated for sure. Now, whether there's international law that agrees on AI, I'm not sure how you govern that. So yes, there might be that body, that UN body for AI, but the question becomes how. I think they probably are going to try to frame it on the foundations of what already exists, and that's not going to work. Not with AI. So as that comes to fruition and comes out, I think we're going to see a lot of weeping and gnashing of teeth of how this unfolds, because they're going to have to build a new foundation for it. Old systems are going to crumble under this.
Mm-hmm. And that leads me to my favorite question that everybody should be asking in 2026. Is this the year that AI starts actually saving us money? Because I've been told repeatedly by titans of industry, friends, family members, countrymen, global executives, all the same thing is this seems like the gold rush where the only people who are making money are making the Pixes and Axes and equipment, because the NVIDIAs of the world are not mining gold. They are selling you the equipment to mine gold. And a lot of people are going up those hills, coming back with very little other than debts. So I get this all the time and saying, Sean, at what point am I going to start saving more money than I am pumping in to AI? And I do not believe that 2026 is going to be the year. I think that this is just like cloud computing of 20 years ago, where people came to me and say, okay, I'm ready to close down my data center, put everything in the cloud. And then when they did that, they showed such an ROI. They took that money and reinvested it tenfold. And all of a sudden, they have 10 times as much data center as that they used to have, because it is so low friction. They spend money, and then they come to me the third year saying, I need to do something. I'm spending too much money on data center, right? This is the world we live on. When you lower the bar on friction of how much to use a new cloud service, you're going to use a ton of it. And then if you get value, you're going to be doubling down how much you're investing in it. So no, I do not believe this is the year. David?
Well, I think 2026 is the year of garbage in, garbage out. Meaning that it's the same as every other year. As long as you try to figure out what you're going to do with your ROI, it comes down to observability. It comes down to baseline metrics. And if you have done the same old thing that you've done with every other technology and every other year, you have to know where you are today. And you have to know, for example, if you have a business process and you're like, oh, AI sounds like it's wonderful. It can make fast work of this. I can release people, or whatever the thinking is around that. Do you know from end to end, or whatever aspect of that, how long does it currently take? How much money did you invest in that process or that node in that process to do what it does? How much training had to go into training that human being? What does the churn look for that position? How many people have come and gone? And if that person leaves, how long does it take to train them again? You have to look at all of the aspects of humanity in that particular area where humans are in the loop. There is no technology. It's manual. And even if you're using workflow automation processes, fine. Okay. How long does the current cycle take? How many decisions are there now? How well documented are your rules? Because even in those use case scenarios, logic only works when you have a very simple yes, no decision. AI is a different animal. It requires rules. If, then, else, if, like, okay, this is the exception, but then this is that. And all of that thinking that goes in. Have you documented that? Why do these exceptions happen? And if a human is making the decision that you want to give artificial intelligence a turn at it, do you have all of these rules, these use cases, these edge cases documented? And what's the plan? What is your plan? Do you have a plan for documenting and logging these new situations as they come up? Or do you just say, oh, well, it's a human, they're just going to make the decision arbitrarily? I don't know why. I just trust that that person that I've hired is always done a great job and has the best interest of the company at heart. Well, that's well and good, but that doesn't translate into AI learning how that human thinks or does what it needs to do. So again, garbage in, garbage out. If you're not prepared, you don't have baselines, you don't have metrics, you're really not ready to see the ROI. You can implement AI, you can play with it, but you're not going to get the ROI because you don't know where you are today to know where you're going to be financially, a net loss, a net surplus. For all you know, AI that you just rolled out is saving you 300%, but you don't know this because you've got nothing to compare it against. So is it saving money? Does a tree make a sound if it falls in the woods and nobody's around to hear it? I don't know. It depends on the point of view. So the point is, yes, I think you can get a lot of savings. I think that the ROI use cases are there, but I think you need to pick wisely. How much money, how much time are you spending as you go through these exercises, documenting all of these? Find areas of opportunity that are ripe for automation, that are ripe for AI assistance, and then make those decisions based on the data. And then you're going to have much better outcomes with this. So if you go and make NVIDIA a bunch of money because you buy all their pickaxes, I think you can come down that hole or down that hill with some gold in your pan, and you're going to be able to cash it in at your local pawn shop or wherever you sell your gold when you come down the mountain.
Well, I can tell you one thing that's changing the math of this question is the new silicon that's coming around. And wow, it is changing significantly. So in the past, you would have GPUs, and GPUs would be able to do creating these models as well as using these models are called inference. Now, the powers that be are investing much more into really low cost, high performance inference silicon. And this should drive down the cost of using AI. So we're seeing this happen today, right? So I remember in December reading that Gemini's Flash model, their high quality Flash model, is 100 billion tokens for $100. 100 billion tokens for $100. So this just means that you can dig a lot for your gold much cheaper, right? But this is going to significantly change the money required to get value. So this means that you can spread around, you can do a lot more with less. I still believe this is not the year you're going to make money on AI if you don't sell AI. But I do believe that it's going to be a lot easier to make mistakes. It's going to be a lot easier to be successful when you've selected poor use cases. And I'm sorry, I just believe the human psyche is the human psyche. No matter how much you and me, David, are preaching to people, pick your battles, look at your use cases first. I have a hard time believing that that is going to be the common denominator. People are going to try to just go after everything all at once. And this is something that's going to help them. I think 2027 is when we start seeing the real value of AI because of things like this. The hardware is going to get cheaper. And because the hardware is cheaper, people will be able to be less efficient with its use and still get value.
The implementation will get ubiquitous too. Not only will this help accelerate that, but the steps that we've taken for the last 2 years through 2024, 2025, and even into early 2026, it is still laborious to implement, and there's lots of steps to it. So yeah, I would definitely say that as these types of technologies come online, and we have things like Google that knocked it out of the park late last year. I think if the trend continues, I would say, yeah, you're probably right. I think a lot of people will start to see a lot more revenue increase or ROI in 2027 because of how cheap it is to get in, because it's more affordable to, like you said, to make those mistakes. But by and large, don't wait. You can get started if you use a little bit of modicum of common sense and strategy behind that to just make sure that you know where it is. And I think Sean and I constantly say this to people internally or even customers. Don't try to bite off more than you can chew. Don't boil the ocean. That's something that I always say about boiling the ocean. And they're like, what do you mean? It's like, it's much easier to boil a cup of water than it is to boil the entire ocean. It's too much energy, too much time, and it's just daunting to begin.
Well, absolutely. But I'm of the opinion that most people do exactly what you're telling them not to.
Yes. We see it every day.
So, the last thing I want to talk about is next year, is this year, the year 2026, the day where is the year that AI native becomes a standard, meaning that every user interface, every experience, every piece of hardware, when you get in your car, when you get on an airplane, when you spend money at any point, AI will be the normal to be part of that experience versus the new hot feature. You know, is AI native going to be the standard?
Yeah, I think we've seen that everywhere now. I mean, my refrigerator, we just had to buy a new one, and there's AI baked into all of these things. I mean, they started to say that it was there, but it's like, okay, you say it's got AI for the sake of AI, but what does that really mean? And in this case, it's done remarkable stuff with the engineering with regards to the hardware componentry that's AI aware, that allows it to be controlled, monitored, and it lowers the efficiency costs of the operational costs. So I couldn't believe, if you haven't had a chance, go to the LG or a bunch of the other websites and see how they're using and integrating AI to help with those energy standards. And again, that goes back to the regulatory stuff. So anyway, just things like refrigerators, probably washing machines, your toaster's going to have it soon.
Yeah, I think most employees in corporate America will have AI as part of their weekly, if not daily, routine. Number two, you can see here, the estimate is by year end, 70% of workflows will have AI built in, and that any AI, any software or platforms will need to have AI embedded into it to be competitive. by the end of next year. I think that is largely true on the much more common infrastructure and business enterprise applications. The Microsofts of the world, the Salesforces, the ServiceNows, the Odoo's, all of those enterprise applications, ERPs and such, they will all be AI native by the end of this year. The question comes is, I don't think the industry specific applications move fast enough. And I think in your relative industries, telecom, banking, retail, I think you're looking at a 5-year window before AI native is the standard. So I am saying I believe this is going to be true for the large majority of common industry agnostic enterprise applications, but I completely disagree when it comes down to industry or vertical specific infrastructure and applications. So I think it's going to be a mixed bag. What do you think?
I think one thing that people are probably not thinking about when they hear this or hear us talk about this is just because AI native becomes the standard, there's that next level of implementation. So just because your platform now has something that's AI native into it, let's just say you get a version upgrade of whatever, and now AI might be forced upon you just because it's there. That doesn't mean in all cases, it depends on the platform, depends on the system, that you have to implement it. However, in order to leverage it, you're going to have to potentially make sure your data is ready. You're going to have to make sure that certain processes, especially when it comes to task or workflow automations, that the workflow is set up in a way that supports it. I can say this, N8N just came out with their new version 2.0 and built from 1.0 to 2.0. I've got a bunch of workflows that I use in that. And just moving into that next generation, there is so many migrations that have to take place just from going from version A to version B. My workflows are a mess. I've got over 60% of my workflows that now need to be retrofitted, upgraded, and changed because the underlying core of technology, as it relates directly to AI, has changed so dramatically that I can't use those workflows from version 1 to version 2. And that's just a workflow automation platform. So that just brings about the pain that says, just because something's native and ready to go doesn't mean that either A, it's turned on, or that it's going to just, magically turn itself on and auto configure itself. You're still going to have to do some effort. And that is going to have probably a year or two or more of lag time, depending on the size of the corporation.
Yeah. So, that's the list that I had that I certainly want to go about talking about 2026. I hope, you out there comment on what you're looking for, what your prediction for 2026 is. David, did I miss anything? I'd love to hear your feedback of if you have any predictions you want to cover on this.
No, I think we covered a good chunk of this on our show. The last show that we had, we gave a little bit of predictions about what we thought here. Obviously, we went much deeper into detail here. But, just as soon as we think we know something in the way that it's going to trend, everything changes, it seems, or feels like overnight. I do think, again, all of these hyperscalers are going to collapse all of these offerings into a more cohesive bundle, going to make the silicon that you talked about, the implementations are going to get easier. So it is going to be cheaper, faster, easier, as all things exponentially. I don't know when Moore's Law runs its course fully on all of these AI systems and hardware. But it is going to be hard pressed, I will say, for anybody out there in the year of 2026. If you haven't implemented AI in your business, well, welcome to the bandwagon, because you're going to have to jump on it. It's like you said, it's going to be everywhere. That's about all I have.
Excellent. So again, really want to call out to all of you in this new year. We want to hear from you. Reach out. If you have ideas, if you want to be guests, please reach out. If you're looking for help If you're a builder and you'd love feedback or you'd love to have a conversation about us, reach out on LinkedIn. You could reach us there. You could reach out to us on the website. You could see the link at the bottom, Transformation Leaders Podcast. And look forward to a wonderful 2026 with you, David. And look forward to our next episode.
Absolutely. And we do have a couple of guests coming up. We don't have the exact dates nailed down, but be on the lookout, probably January, February, some time frame for some new guests to join the show. And Sean, it's been a pleasure closing out the year with you last year and starting this new year. Look forward to speaking with you and debating all these wonderful technologies that are coming to fruition. And again, if you need to get a hold of Sean or I, we're always here and available to you on that. Well, that's it for this show. We'll see you next Wednesday at 12 o'clock noon Eastern time. That's it. Have a great day. Bye-bye.